Hey, Preston, I'm going to bring you through here. And John, nice to see you, John. All right, Preston, you should be in. Hello, Thomas. I think you're on mute, Preston. There you go. Can you hear me? In fact, I'm probably going to head downstairs. I think I've got enough juice on my battery. You there, Preston? John, Thomas, Eric. There's Eric. I'm moving downstairs, Eric. Okay, you should be in. Headed down to the cave.
Okay.
My light's turned on. Ugh. There you go, Preston.
Hey guys,
Hey, how are you?
doing good.
Good.
Thanks for coming and being here. I was
Yeah.
worried. I was like, Brooke is usually a little earlier than this. I'm scared.
Oh yeah. No, sorry.
You're all good.
I'm just working away, losing track of time a little bit. I knew like approximately what time we were at, but not exactly. So.
You're all good.
Oh, and I was avoiding coming downstairs because it's cold and dark.
Oh,
But it's all good. I tried to like make it homey. This is literally the space under the stairs at my house. So it's like a Harry Potter effect where it's like Brooke under the stairs. But
why do you have to be under the stairs in your basement?
because it's like when I used to record my videos for Thinkster, like I needed a space where I wasn't like too echoey and stuff.
Yeah.
So everywhere I tried, it was just too echoey, and I didn't really have a space where I could just like be in my little space in my zone. So this was like the only place that was really sort of empty, and I was like, that might be kind of cool just to.
It's your
like,
own little
cut it out.
sound recording booth.
It is, yeah.
That's cool.
Totally. So I mean, it's fun. But Preston's got his cool little setup there too. Do you have a
it's
microphone?
been nice.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
Yeah, we finished part of our basement. We finished about 2 years ago now, almost 18 months ago. And so
Okay.
I moved down into an office down here instead of working out of my bedroom.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit better than working in the bedroom. So
Right. Especially because I know you work late sometimes. Like I'll get emails from you at like 1 in the morning and stuff, 1 and 2 in the morning.
yeah, when I was making that JavaScript fundamentals course, I was up late a lot of times. So
Yeah. That's good though. I mean, if that's like, I know different people work at different times. Joe works definitely like late nights. I'm more of like, I'd rather wake up at 4 in the morning and get stuff done then, you know?
Yeah. I try to get up early and I just can't do it. Like if I have to, I'll be up. But I did start where I got to the point where I'd record at night after the kids went to bed and everything. It was nice and quiet. And then I'd get up and I'd edit in the morning. And that worked most of the time, except for if I messed something up and I needed to re-record the voice,
Mm-hmm.
it was tough because then like I'm just waking up and I'd have to wait for a while because my voice wasn't ready yet and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Cool. I like your screen there, Eric. Uh-oh. Are you on mute? Yeah, you're on mute.
So much
There we
harder
go.
to find the mute button when I'm presenting the screen. Looks like we got some people showing up. Hi, everybody.
We do. Oh, we've got a code name. Who's SWDM?
Southwest drunk man.
That would be interesting.
If you use an acronym, it's fair for me to guess.
That's totally true. What
Hey.
is, yeah, so okay, what is it, SW? What do you say it
It's-
stands for?
She says switch digital media in the chat.
Okay.
Can we do like we usually do and make everybody potentially be able to talk and use their cameras?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah. Do you want to wait and see how many people we have first, or do you just want to bring them on now?
Yeah, we can just bring them on.
Okay. All right. So fair warning, everybody, I'm going to bring you on. So if your camera is on, make sure you have like, everything is good to go.
Code of conduct.
Yep. So John, here we go.
It doesn't automatically start people's cameras, does it?
It has before. I think normally it doesn't, and maybe it's more consistent now that they've kind of like improved things, but there was a time there that I did this a couple times and the people were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would be like freaked out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, are Thomas and Steven related? You both have the same last name.
That's a good question. Steven's won so many prizes at the Utah Angular Meetup. It's like he's our #1 prize winner right now.
True. Maybe Steven needs like a break.
I was told I couldn't participate anymore.
Well, I thought that's why you brought Thomas Nielsen in. That's like your alter ego, so you can still win prizes.
It looks like he comes from the different side of Europe.
Oh, okay.
EN versus ON.
Oh.
Oh, was it? I thought it was spelled the same way. Oh, you're right.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Tom. Welcome. I want the whole grid.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going real good. How about yourself?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Nice. Oh, good to see you.
I'm writing a book proposal right now.
Oh, cool. What about?
Using entity relationship diagrams and object relational mapping.
Ooh, nice. Those are always useful.
The diagrams I use export their metadata to the ORM. So the diagram is the object relational mapping metadata.
Oh, so you can build them from the diagram tool.
That's right. So you build your entities from that, and then you use your schema tool to read the entities and build your database. So your database is the code and the code is the database, and it all stems from the ERD.
Oh, that sounds awesome, Tom. Great work, man.
Thank you.
It's good to have everybody here. We'll probably give it another, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. So to let more people come in. Oops.
I like that. Thomas says Danish, like the Canada of Denmark.
Nice.
I'm going to post in the chat a link to one of my ERDs. You can take a look at that and you'll see like what I'm working with. I'm kind of hot on it right now, so excuse me if I brag, but I don't have a lot of peers in my house.
No worries, man. We're here to hang out and celebrate. So as the closer we get to December too, the less serious I feel. I just want to have fun with y'all, but I hope we can learn stuff too. Whoa.
Wow.
We should make that our intro image.
Yeah.
Jump up to the top left for the legend so you know what you're looking at. There you go.
Nice.
Now I'll show you like what you're looking at here. Scroll down about halfway down the page. Basically, exit this first section and go to the next section down. There where it says artist. So this, and on the right, you'll see performance. So this is a collection of live concerts. And the performance, of course, reference the artist. And then if you go even further to the right, you'll see sources, which are recordings of the live concerts. And of course, the source has a performance, has a artist. And I gave a talk on this in at our meetup for entity relation, or excuse me, for hypertext application language. And that's the JSON dialect that I use in my API. So if I fetch a source here, it's going to include as embedded data the performance and the artist, and links to everything else. And it uses hypertext as the engine of application state, so that every piece of data that's related to that data has a link to how to fetch that data. So it might be a link to a collection. It might be a link to an individual entity if you don't want to repeat the entity inside of the response.
Hey, that's super cool, man. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm really pleased that you did. That's cool. Good work. So when did you give that talk, Tom?
Oh, it would have been early last year, I think. Maybe even, yeah, maybe around that time. That feels right.
Very cool. It's a useful skill to be able to map the data and plan everything and graph it out.
Yep. I use Doctrine, which is a PHP ORM, and I wrote a GraphQL library for it. So I can, using my existing ORM, I just plug in the top level entities, and the rest of the GraphQL builds itself. So I don't have to write types or anything.
That's solid. That's real solid. Let's see. 17 participants.
Nice.
We're on a roll.
We are.
I got an amazing opportunity to speak at the San Diego Meetup a week ago, and they're super cool. If anybody feels like they need more meetups in their life, I totally recommend it. But don't leave our meetup, because our meetup's the best.
San Diego treated me really well.
That's good. They're super nice. I think I caught them on an easier day, which is good. So I was super nervous. So I'm like, I don't know anybody in San Diego. Now I know like 10 people in San Diego. So it's cool.
That is cool. How long was your talk? Was it the same one you're giving tonight?
No, it was actually a revamped version of FlameLink, Firebase, and Angular.
Okay.
And it was about 45 minutes.
Okay. That's a good long time for never having met anybody there. That would definitely be a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Michi,
Hello,
I
everyone.
think, knows me through the NG Champion program. And
Yeah.
because of that, she, I guess, trusts me. I'm grateful for that.
Did you
Oh.
narrow, like, squeeze out a date from her? Did you get her to commit to coming and doing a talk for us sometime?
I thought we had her on the schedule already, actually.
Do we?
Or did she cancel?
No, I think it's just that we came up with a different December activity.
Oh, that's right.
So then we need to follow up with her and make sure we get her for like January or something.
Speaking of the meetup, we've got some really cool things coming. There's this big thing in December that we're going to announce soon. And I am super excited to tell you guys about that. But I won't, because I'm still waiting.
It'll be exciting though. It'll be different and not your typical meetup, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then next month we've got, let's see, yeah, that's November. I don't have it in front of me, but we have some great speakers lined up next month. And then January, we have a VIP speaker coming. So that'll be cool as well. I think November we have a VIP as well. Can't remember here.
It was, maybe that's when we have, from NX. It was Philip from NX.
Ah, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great one.
That will be good.
That's in November, you said?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. That'll kind of go along with what I'm talking about today. So
Oh, perfect.
kind of prime people for them.
Yes. Yeah, January, we're getting somebody from the Angular team to speak to us, and they will be bringing a brand new talk. So I don't even know what they're going to speak on yet, but it's going to be fancy and new.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm really grateful to the Angular team for being willing to do that. All right, I think we can get started. Let me get some business out of the way first. So first of all, I want to say thank you to our amazing sponsors. We've got Thinkster.io, ngconf, and HeroDevs. The big highlight we want to give right now is that Enterprise NG is next month, and that's what, the 17th?
Well, it depends. If you want to do the free workshops are on the 16th. And then there's paid workshops on the 17th and 18th. And then Enterprise NG itself is the 18th and 19th.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want to do all of it.
I know, it sounds cool. The 16th will be really neat because that's free.
Yeah.
But don't forget, you guys, nobody else is getting this offer. So NGConf is offering $200 off only, like exclusively to Utah Angular Meetup members. So you guys get a discount that nobody else is getting. All you have to do is use, I just put it in the email this morning. What was it? Hold on.
It's
let me go
Meetup,
find
isn't it?
it. That's if you want $100 off, but if you want $200 off, I think it was Utah NG. Say. So keep talking. I'll go find that and then.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm really excited about that. We all are, I think. There's going to be some amazing speakers lined up on that. And in fact, can you guys see my screen with the NG Comp stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, we have, wow. I haven't looked at this month, but wow.
It keeps growing.
Oh my gosh. Ooh.
And those are all
Yeah,
recorded,
that's
so
awesome.
the conference people, like if you can't attend all the sessions, those are going to be recorded so we can watch after as well, right?
You can watch it. So if you have a ticket, you can actually watch it as soon as it's done. Like as soon as someone's talk has finished, the platform that we're using will make it so that you can log in and watch it as soon as their talk is done. And you'll have access to that for 4 months. And like after the conference, nobody else will have access to any of the talks for 4 months after. So there's a lot of value in that. But yeah, you can go back and watch it as often as you want. Just like, you know, as soon as that talk is done, you go in and you're good.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Also, I like to highlight this. I feel like this is a underutilized resource among us. I've been listening to the Angular Show podcast for a few months now, and I've gone back and listened to their older stuff that they recorded before I listened to it. And it just fills out so much knowledge, history, trivia, but even more importantly, it helps you understand why Angular is what it is today and where it's going. In fact, the latest one was called The Future of Angular. And the Angular Show crew, Frosty and Brian F. Love, they interview, who was it? It was not Misko.
It's Minko.
Minko, thank you. I get their names confused. But yeah, and that was really fun. So I recommend that. You can listen to it on Spotify for free. And I subscribe, so I think that helps them somehow. But yeah, so check that out, the Angular Show. You can find them on Twitter too. Prizes today. Let me open up my notes because they're not showing. Oh, that's my talk.
That code was Utah NG, by the way.
Oh, Utah NG. Okay. Oh, and you threw that in the chat, so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then prizes today, we have a free Enterprise NG ticket. And I put down that was worth 300, but I think I just looked and it's worth more than that a little bit. Although,
Almost, yeah. Ticket prices are about to go up, so it's
Yeah, 'cause-
almost worth 350.
it's like the late pricing at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost.
And then we have 1 month free Thinkster Pro membership. Then I realized that I did not prepare a quiz for today. So I'm gonna try to do a little randomizer and pick a couple lucky winners for that. So this time we will pick randomly anybody. So that'll be cool. And I wanted to introduce Preston. So let's see, where did I put that? Preston, I misplaced your bio. I apologize, but Preston I
that's
know personally now, and he is expert teacher at Thinkster.io. And what are some of the things that you teach about, Preston?
So I have 3 courses on Thinkster right now. The biggest one and the newest one is a JavaScript fundamentals course that was released earlier this summer. And then I have a course on the Angular CLI and on deploying apps to Netlify. And in that course, we go through specifically an Angular app, but you could use it for any application really to deploy to Netlify. So those are the 3 courses I have right now.
Super cool. And I think without further ado, why don't we let you start your talk? So go for it.
Okay,
I will
so I'm
stop sharing so you can share.
Perfect. All right, let me.
And again, thank you everybody for coming to the UT Angular Meetup, and we hope you enjoy it.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity. Brooke reached out to me earlier this month and asked if I could present something today. And so I'm excited for the opportunity. And I've been to the NG Utah meetup before, but it's been a while. It's probably been 2 or 3 years since the last time I went. I live up in the Ogden area. And so with living up here and I have 4 young kids. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to get down to the meetup. So it's nice that it's online right now, a little bit easier to jump in. I work as a web developer for a company here in Utah called Motive Health. Our building is actually right next to the brand new buildings there in South Jordan, right by the Front Runner station. So we're a health insurance company trying to find ways to help people save money on their health insurance. So our stack is Angular on the front end, and then mostly .NET Core on the back end, a little bit of Node as well. So I've been using Angular since our first app went to production in Angular like beta 0. Like we went super early because it was an internal tool. So I've been using it in production for about almost 5 years, not quite 5 years, like 4.5 or so. So I've seen lots of changes and stuff. But it's been good. I love working in Angular. And the newest thing that I've been working with Angular is NX. So I don't know how many of you have any experience with NX, but it's a really cool tool provided by the people over at Narwhal. And essentially it's a wrapper around the Angular CLI, and it gives some extra functionality and some help in creating workspaces for Angular. But the cool thing is that you can build applications in a monorepo style, and your applications can be Angular, they could be React, they could be backend like Next.js. I think I saw recently that some people are working on getting .NET Core to run inside these NX workspaces. Recently as well, I saw somebody who was trying to get Go to work inside NX. So it's pretty open and it's pretty flexible. And so what we're going to talk about today is having an NX workspace with 2 Angular applications in that workspace. and how you can use GitHub Actions to run the tests on your application code on pull requests. So let me pull over here my GitHub page first with this this repository. All right, so maybe let me. So this is the demo app that we'll be doing today. I'll put this in the chat real quick if I can find it. I had it up here, but let's see. Sorry about this. Okay, there we go. Found it. When I started presenting, Zoom kind of changed on me a little bit. So there's the link to the repository for the app that we'll be working on today. So right now, we don't have a workflow or an action defined. We'll do that in a few minutes, but we'll be able to see those actions run in this Actions tab here in GitHub. We'll, like I said, we'll be doing this with pull requests. But you can run GitHub Actions in a lot of different ways, and so I'll show how we can do it on pull requests, and then you can take that and apply it to other formats as well. So let's jump back over to Visual Studio Code. Just a quick rundown of the outline of this app and kind of the architecture. So the way that NX workspaces are created, when you first create the workspace, you choose one app to be in your workspace. So in this case, that's in the apps folder up here at the top level. And then you have an application. So like NG Utah Web is what I called it. It automatically creates a second project for the end-to-end tests for you. And then,
Hey, Preston.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but if it's possible, we have somebody asking to increase the font size.
Okay, let's see if I can.
It's just a little hard to see.
Let's see. I can't remember.
Control plus sometimes works for me. Let me see.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll do.
Yeah, that works.
I think mine must be.
Probably your Mac. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Command plus does when there's a file open, but let me try this just a second.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
Okay.
Let's see
Perfect.
if this is better.
And that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we have an apps folder, and that's where your applications will live. In this case, I have two Angular applications that I created, NG Utah Web and NG Utah Admin. When you create an application, it automatically creates an end-to-end test application for you as well. NX Workspace, the NX does that for you. So I have two applications, and they're accompanying end-to-end tests. And then after that, everything that you the idea of in an NX workspace is to put features and utilities and services and stuff like that into libraries. And then your applications will import those libraries and use them. And so down here in the libs folder, I have a few different libraries. I have one that's shared, and we'll use that or those components. In this case, I made a shared components library. We'll be able to use that component in either of the applications, the NG Utah admin or the web application. And then I have libs that are specific to the admin app and libs that are specific to the web app. And so if we can run these applications. Let me run the first one. I'll run the NG Utah web app first and open it on port 4201. And that'll take just a second to compile and run. And I didn't change a whole lot on the out of the box on these applications. Basically all I did from this blue bar that says NX welcome to NG Utah web down, that's just what comes when you create an application in NX. So what I've added is just this navigation, and it's just super bare bones, but it's just it's a shared component, and that's what we'll look at. We'll change that and we'll see how that affects the workspace. So we can run them. I won't run right now. I won't run the admin app, but it's this basically the same thing. And so we'll use that, or we'll do that in a minute. So so that's kind of the baseline. We have our apps, we can run them, we can change applications in them, or change parts of the application in those in our code, just like a normal Angular app. I've changed onto a new branch, and I'm going to call it my PR. Let's say that we want to change something on this web application on the home page. And so if I come in here, instead of just the default homepage works, let's put a big H1 and just put NG Utah web homepage. And then I don't think I have added yet. Oops, wrong file. I haven't added yet the router outlet, or oh, there is a router outlet. I forgot I defined routing when I created the application, so it did put the router outlet in there. But I'm gonna delete all this stuff that came preloaded with it, so that it's easier to see. And then I'm gonna make sure that I do have my home route set up. So now if I go back to here and refresh, oh, I might have killed it. Oh, nope. Let's see. Let me go back.
By the way, this is like the smoothest live coding I've ever seen. Well done.
Well, it might have ended, so.
Oh, I spoke too
Yeah,
soon.
you might have spoken too soon. Did I change? Oh, I changed the wrong one. You have to change the right one for it to work. So let me undo that so that we can make sure that we're on the right one. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, now if I come to NG Utah web, this is the one I wanted to add. Okay. Let me delete all this stuff. This is the one that I didn't set up the router outlet yet for. So I'll put that in there. And okay, now if we open it up, okay, so we have this. Oh, I need to set the proper route. Instead of web feature home, I'm just gonna make it the empty path. Man, my bad on this. Okay. So now, okay. Let me add the component here, the route here. Component is the homepage component. All right, there we go. So now we edited the homepage. We have a route, and it's just going to this homepage component. And so that's all we've done. So if we look in our sidebar over here, the only things that I've changed, or if I pull up the changed files, the only things that have changed are NG Utah web or libs web. And so if I was gonna create a pull request with this information and test it, I wanted to make sure everything looked good. I don't need to test anything in the admin application because nothing changed. And so, in a small application like this, it doesn't really matter that much. But at work, we have a monorepo with 3 applications in it. And we have probably 75 libraries that those applications, some of them are shared. A lot of them are specific to the one app. So for a while, we were running our tests on pull requests, but we were using Google Cloud Build, and I couldn't get it to work where we were only testing what was affected. And so we were testing the entire code base every single time on a pull request, and it was timing out because it would take so long because Google Cloud Build, it only allows for like 20 minutes at a time, and we were going over that 20 minutes eventually. But NX has this really neat part of their command line that you can tell it to just show you the stuff that's affected, or to test it or build the affected parts. And you can do that with NX affected. And then a colon, and then there's apps. And so if I run this one, it'll analyze the application, and it can look and it says, oh, the only affected apps are NG Utah Web. So I like, because as we looked, I didn't touch anything in admin. It knows that I didn't test it or didn't touch it. So it gives me that feedback. Another one is test, and I haven't changed any of the tests, but so it'll just run them or the default test that it creates. But again, it looked at my code base and said the NG Utah Web project changed and the Web Feature Home project changed. So I'm going to test those ones, but not anything that's related to the admin app. And so I deleted some stuff, so this test is failing. So we'll go ahead and change that test so that our pull request actually works. I'm just going to.
What happens if it didn't work? If the test doesn't pass?
Well, so okay, let's create it. I'll change it in a minute and we'll show that. That's a good point. So the test that one is not passing right now, but it's okay. We'll go ahead and we'll add this to our branch and we'll commit it.
It works. What's up, guys?
And I'll go ahead and push that. And so we have our PR here. Our PR branch now is up there. So that we'll come back to that in just a second, and we'll show what happens in GitHub Actions when it doesn't, when the tests don't pass. But that NX affected command is really handy, because like I said, when the application gets really big, sometimes I'll make a change to just one small little library, and I only need to check or to test that one library to make sure that I didn't break anything. But before, in my previous setup, I was still testing things that I hadn't changed. And so we were wasting a lot of time waiting for the test to run. But now when we test, instead of hitting up to close to 20 minutes, a lot of times our tests are done in about 5 or 6 because we're testing so much less stuff. And so NX affected, that's one of the biggest benefits that I've found when I've used it. So now we have our application changed. We want to test our NG Utah Web application when we create this pull request. So to do that, now this is not specific to NX. We're going to jump into GitHub Actions. So throw in the chat if you have used GitHub Actions before. And let's see how many people have used them before. They're very similar to lots of CI/CD type products out there. There's a lot of similarities to them, but they're pretty straightforward to set up. It's really pretty nice. I've used it a little bit. So by default, I don't want it in there. I want it in the root of my project. Let me click out here. By default, to add GitHub Actions to a repository, in the root of the project, you put a .github folder and then workflows inside of that folder. So .github/workflows. And then inside of here, you can add a YAML file. So in this one, we'll put nx affected tests.yaml. And each one of these YAML files will run as a workflow whenever the criteria is met that you provide. So you can do on push to master, on pull request to a branch. You can do it. I saw recently, and I'm going to look into this actually, that you can run it on a cron job and give it a criteria, and it'll run every day or however often you tell it. So there's a lot of different times that you can use it. And so it's really flexible. So I prepared the YAML file, so I'm going to paste it in and then we'll go over it real quick. Let me pull this down and hide that a little bit. So at the top of the file, you give it a name, and it's just basically a pretty name that that makes it easier to identify. So in this case, again, I put NX affected CI tests. The next thing is the on attribute, and this is where you tell it when it's going to run. So in this case, I put in pull request, and then I only want it to run when the pull request is going to merge into the main branch. So you can put multiple branches in there. If you didn't put anything, if you just put on pull request like that, then it would run on all pull requests. But you have control over that for when you want it to run. The next step, the next part is the jobs. And so each workflow can run multiple jobs. Most of mine I have running in a single job, but you can have them run in multiple. And I'll show an example of something that I have at work at the end where we run in multiple jobs just as a demo. But you can run them all in one job if you like to. This section right here, build, that's one indentation in from jobs. That's going to be the name of this job, and that can be anything that you want. Build is pretty popular as I've been looking at everyone's, because usually the first step in a workflow is that you have to build it. So a lot of people have been using that, but you could name it something else if you wanted to. The next indentation in is at least for this runs on, is configuration for this build. So in this case, we're just saying run on Ubuntu latest, and that's the OS. And there's a few options. I'm not 100% sure all the options they provide, but Ubuntu latest worked great for me. So that's just what I chose. The last section is the steps. And this is going to be a list of steps that you want to take for this workflow. So the first one, when we're doing NX, is that we need to check out our repository into the action, because under the covers for NX affected, it takes a look at the branch or the commit that you're on right now, and it wants to compare it back to a previous spot in your repository. And so you need to get the full Git history for it to be able to do that. And that's what I was running into problems with back when I was running this on Google Cloud build, is that I couldn't get the Git history there. So I couldn't compare it to anything. And so the NX affected wasn't working. But you can use this. If it says uses : that is like a predefined, almost like a plugin that somebody else has created and that you can use inside your workflow. So this one, I believe, is provided right by GitHub, and it just lets you to check out and then check out your repository, and fetch depth 0 tells it to get the whole history for you so that you can do that comparison. The next section here is just tells it what version of Node to use. In this case, I'm just telling it to use Node version 12.x. You can provide a strategy like this. Let me just copy this over. Up here under the runs on section, I could provide this, and I could put multiple versions of Node in here if I wanted to, and then change down here. You can tell it to use matrix.node version. And then here again, you could do matrix.node version. And then it would run these tests for multiple versions of Node. If you wanted to, you could run it for a specific one or multiple versions as well. I'll leave this in here just as a demo, but I'm going to only run it on 12.x just because it'll work for me on 12. So I'm going to leave that on 12. So this section just tells it what version of Node that we want to use. And then I run one more git fetch just to make sure that I have all of my tags and all of my commits and all of my information in the Git for NX to compare it to. So git fetch, just a normal command like you could run on your app or on your local machine, and then npm install. And you have to run npm install in this for this workflow so that it can use all of the dependencies that the NX needs. I don't know all of the ones that it needs to compare, but it needs at least some of them. And so you have to run npm install. So everything up to line 27 is basically set up for the job. And in a lot of cases, especially with Angular projects or Node projects, JavaScript projects in general, line 2 to line 27 will be very similar. So you can use that as kind of a baseline starting point for actions in the future. This line 27, 28, and 29 are the lines that are going to run our affected tests for us when we create a pull request. And so again, I just gave it a name, specified that I wanted to run this in a bash shell. I think that's just a little bit redundant, but I put it in there just to be a little bit explicit. And then I run this command. And this is running an npm script from my package.json. If I look over here, npm run affected :test runs an nx CLI command, but then you don't have to have nx installed globally in your action to run. So npm run affected :test, and then this part is different than what I had to run on my local machine. If you remember, I just had to run nx affected :test, and it uses the main branch as the default base. But in the GitHub action, the path, I don't know if it's like the path to the main branch, or I don't know exactly how to explain it, but main by itself doesn't work. So you have to tell it where that main branch is that it's going to compare to. And that location, at least right now in GitHub Actions, is remotes/origin/main. So we just provide that so that so that the GitHub action knows where to compare it to, and then it can run our application. We could, you can, just for reference, you can specify head with -- head, and then you could put like all caps head. I think that is the default that it uses, but you can tell it, you could give it 2 commits, for example, and tell it to compare between those 2 commits, and you could see what was changed by base would be the starting point and head would be the ending point. But we don't need that in our workflow. So this is our workflow. Does anybody have any questions so far about what we've covered? All right, sounds good. So I'm going to add this. I have an alias. That's what ADALC is. It'll just add it and commit it. So I'll add the workflow, and then I'll push that to my PR or to my branch as well. So now everything should be set up. I just pushed that. So if I create a pull request here and changed web app, for example, and then I create the pull request. So there's a couple things. First, you'll see it takes a second to pop up, but GitHub just popped up, and it tells you that a check is running. And it has, you can hide all of them, or you can click on the details. So from the pull request, you can see right here that a test is running, or you can come up here to the Actions tab and click on that, and you can see all the workflows. And this part over here on the left is that name that we gave it. And then changed web app, it comes from the PR, the name of the PR. And so you can click on that, and then it'll show the different build or the different jobs inside this build. We only had one, which was build. And so then you can come in and you can see all the different steps for your build. So right now it's on npm install. And if you come in the middle of a build like this, it takes a few seconds before it starts showing you the output, but it'll show us the output as it goes along. And so right now it's just doing the npm install. It takes a few minutes for it to install, but once it's done, it should be pretty quick because I don't have that much in this application. This is just a bare bones app. So let it finish installing, and then it will move on. So now we're running our affected unit tests. And again, right here, it says that we're running ng Utah web and web feature home. And so it tested the web feature home first, and that one passed. All we were testing is that it would create. And then ng Utah web app, it did not pass. And so we have those errors that we saw before. And so now we have this red X. And if we go back to our pull request, we see a red X right here next to the name, and it tells you that there was a fail, or that it failed. And then down here in the checks, it will it's set to fail as well. In the application, or in the repo settings, you can let's see, you can add a rule. I think it's here. You can set in the branch protection rule. So I could say in main, I want to require status checks to pass before merging, and you can select a specific one, or you can just choose all of them and then create. I'll have to put in my password real quick. And so now it should have updated that on my pull request. It says, I think you still can do it because I have merge, or I have administration access, but it will require that these tests, and maybe I have to put in that specific build. Let's edit this one just to see. But you can do this. That this one is required. And so at work, we have that on there. We don't let people merge unless their tests are passing. There we go. So it tells you that the required statuses must pass before merging, and then you still can do it as an administrator, but obviously most of the time you don't want to. So the UI is really pretty nice. It's all right here in GitHub. You don't have to go out to another application to check and see the status of your workflow. It just works right there. So let's come back to our tests, or to our code, and let's hurry and update this app test so that it will pass, and we'll see how that looks. So I'll just come to the spec file. I'll do the Joe Eames recommended way of testing, and I'll just component equals new app component. And then I'm just going to have it do this one, that it should create the component. And I think I just go to there. Nope, that one too. So now we just have the one component test, and we're just going to create it and expect that it's truthy. So I'm going to add this, just say fix the test, and I'm going to push to my branch, which also will push that update directly to my PR. So we see the new commit here, and then you can see that it automatically kicked off a new build as well because I pushed that pull request. And I can just click on details here, and it pulls me over, and it's going to start running the workflow. And again, this will take a couple minutes for it to install, but it's going to run the tests again, and then it should show, if all of them test, it'll show a green check mark so that we know that all the tests passed. So while we're waiting for that, does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to see?
So here, if you're, this is Val here asking the question. If you have two test cases, one of them passed, one of them failed, and you push and you change, it will run both tests again because there's no caching involved at this stage.
Yes, that's correct. You can do, you could do stuff like something like NX provides, if we go, you can go look at, oops, sorry, NX, yeah, nx.app. So NX Cloud is an app, or is a product provided by Narwhal that will do some caching for you. And so you can add this to your repository and it will cache. So if you run the app, if you run the tests on your local machine, for example, it'll cache the result of that test result on their servers. And then if you run it again and nothing has changed for that component, or that test, it will just pull the result right from their cache. And then you don't have to run that test again. And that'll work. So if I run the test on my computer and then my teammate runs the tests on their computer and nothing has changed, it'll just pull directly from the cache. And the same thing would be on our CI server, that it would pull from the cache there as well. So that's the easiest way probably to implement caching between the tests, is to use NX Cloud. I can't remember the exact pricing limits. I know that they do have a free tier, but they, even if you do pay, you pay for $1 per hour saved. And so they'll look at how long it takes normally to run your tests. And so let's say normally it takes 10 minutes. The first time you run it, it took 10 minutes. And so you didn't pay anything for that. And then the next time you run it, it cached a lot of it. And so it only took you half the time. So now it saved you 5 minutes. When you get up to 60, then that's $1 that you have to pay for them. So we've been having this, we turned this on in our applications in May, and we've paid a total of like $31 since then. So it hasn't saved like a crazy amount of time, but it's a couple minutes every time we run a PR. And so it does, I mean, it does save some time and it adds up. So that's the easiest way to add caching, is to use NX Cloud. And I'm pretty sure it's been a little while since I ran it, but I'm pretty sure you just have to run a CLI command and it'll do a lot of the setup for you. So it's really pretty nice. And that's one way that you can do it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? If you do, don't feel free to jump in and interrupt. But we'll go back now. So these tests ran. I can open it up and I can see which tests were run. I can see the result of those tests, that there was a success, and we can see a check mark here instead of the big red X. So if I go back to my pull request, now we have the green check mark here. It's success. Down here, it shows that all checks have passed. There's no conflicts. And so I can go ahead and merge that. So that's pretty much the flow. Like I said, it's really nice to be able to run tests on just affected applications. And so like I mentioned before, that one I only changed the web application. I don't need to test the admin application because nothing changed on it. And so I don't need to waste that time running the application. And even more importantly, I feel like, is being able to use this to build applications and to run them. So let me pull up real quick my workflow that I use at work to when we do deploys. I'm just pulling it up here real quick, just a second. So this this workflow is one that we use at home, and a lot of it's very similar to what we just did. It's slightly different. This section right here are environment variables that you can set, and I'll show you how to add secrets to your application or to your action as well. And then in this case, we run a custom builder called affected test release, and then we can run, or we can deploy only our affected apps. And again, before we figured out how to do this part, anytime we merged into our main branch, we automatically deployed to the test environment, but we deployed all the applications at that point, because we couldn't figure out how to only deploy one or both of the apps, depending on what was necessary. But now, if I make a change to app 1, then only app 1 is deployed. And if I make a change to app 2, then only 2 is deployed. If I make a change to shared dependency, then they're both deployed. And an example of the shared dependency would be if I come to libs shared, this is the shared components, and I come to the main nav, and instead of DE, let's do, I don't know, we'll just make it red. So I think my application is still running. So if we come back here, now our navigation bar is red. So if I run the NX affected apps command here, then we see that Utah admin and Utah web are both affected. So if I create a new branch, and I add that, changed the color, and I push that up to my repo, and I'll come and I'll create another pull request. Then it will start another check, and it takes a second to start up. So we'll kind of have that running in the background, but it's starting my workflow now. Again, automatically, just as soon as you create a pull request, it just starts up. So I don't want to get like too far into the weeds on what you can do with NX, but there's a lot of, you can tell many of the things that you can run on an application in the angular.json file. So if I look at the ng Utah admin app here, I can build my application. I can, if I scroll down, I can serve it, I can lint it, I can test it. And then on the end-to-end test, I can run end-to-end tests. So those, basically all those things, you wouldn't really serve affected apps. I mean, I guess I've never tried it, so I don't think you can serve affected apps, but all these other ones, lint, test, end-to-end, build, and deploy. I'm pretty sure deploy, I think deploy might be a built-in one. It might not be though. I think I just saw someone mention deploy, but these are the ones that come out of the box. You can see the affected libs, you can see the affected apps, you can build the affected applications, run end-to-end tests, run tests, and run linting on them. But you can add custom ones as well. And so so in my case, on my test release, I was able to add a custom test runner. And I have an article coming out pretty soon on the ngconf blog that will cover this. But let me pull up my cheat sheet here where I have this one. But you can add to your angular.json project this, for example. So you can add at the same level as test, for example. I added one called test release. And this is a custom, or this is a custom builder, and it uses something provided by Narwhal themselves, that it runs commands for you, and you can run this directly. Like you can, I think I've added this to the admin app, so I can run just like I would nx build ng Utah admin. I could run test release on this specific application, or I can use it to run affected ones. So instead of running this other script that I have, I'm just going to run an echo command. Ng Utah admin changed. So if I come into my terminal here, then I can run nx affected and set the target to test release. And then you can see here that it saw that, okay, ng Utah admin changed. And so it runs that command. And in this case, I just echoed out this string. But in my case at work, we execute a bash file that tags the repository with a specific tag. And then Google Cloud Build is looking for that tag. And as soon as a new tag pops up, then it kicks off a build for us and executes. So it's really flexible. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with NX, and then when you, I broke a unit test, so it didn't pass. So I think I didn't change my ng Utah admin test yet. But anyways, that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Hopefully you all found something useful from this. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I have one blog post that I'll put in the chat here in a minute that you can read about this specifically on the ngconf blog. I have another one coming out soon on what we did to release our applications. I just finished today making it so that we could upload source maps to Sentry for our application and create releases. So we're using these GitHub actions a lot, and we just started in the last few weeks, and it's made life so much easier. Like I said, our tests, we'd have to run the test for the entire repository, and then like one little thing would break, and we'd be like, oh, I forgot to fix that test. And then we'd fix it and we'd push it, and we'd have to wait for 20 minutes again for the test to run. And so now it's a lot quicker. We're waiting only 4 or 5 minutes in a lot of cases, where before we were waiting 20. And as you all know, that adds up throughout a day. And not only just in time, but like in mental overhead that, I have to wait forever for this to work. So that's, I think, all I have. I'm just looking at the questions here. So we kind of, it looks like Steven said, do you use GitHub Actions to do continuous deployment as well, or just continuous integration? Like I mentioned before, we kind of use the GitHub Actions in combination with Google Cloud Build, and I use that test release custom builder. And so when an application has changed, we run that affected command. And if the application has been affected, then it gets tagged, and then Google Cloud Build picks that up and builds and deploys our application. But we only do that we do automatic deploys to test, and we manually tag releases for production. So it's not like a true continuous deployment, but you could do something similar if you wanted to. Instead of, you could also do, you could build the application and push it somewhere if you wanted to with the affected command. So you could build the application and you can get the folder in the dist folder like you normally would for an Angular application, and you could push those built files to a server wherever you're hosting your application. That would work as well, and so that could be a possibility. Does it run Scully? My guess is that you could build it just like normally or test Scully. I haven't tried it specifically, but you should be able to get it too. And then the last one, biggest gotchas or things I expected to work that I had to work around. So actually the biggest thing was, we have that test release one that tags our application. And what I wanted it to do was I wanted a separate workflow for Sentry. So for those of you who haven't used Sentry, when you can tag releases in Sentry as well. And then when a bug is captured, it will say, hey, this showed up in this given release. And so we wanted to do that. And so what I wanted was a workflow that triggered when a new tag was created, and built the application and pushed the source maps to Sentry. But apparently there's a limitation in GitHub Actions where if you're in a workflow and you do something that should trigger another workflow, the second workflow won't run by default. And I kind of get it. They're probably afraid of getting like in a continuous loop and that you can't break out of. But some of the workarounds that you can do are, in our case, we just combined it into one workflow instead of doing two workflows, which worked well because then we only had to do npm install once anyways. Or that some people said that you could get a personal access token from GitHub and do like your git tag or your git push with that personal access token. And then that makes GitHub think that it was the same as if it had been run on your computer. And then the other workflow will trigger. But that's been the biggest thing so far that I ran into, that I just assumed that when my tag was created, that it would work, because in testing, all I was doing was creating tags from my command line and pushing them, and the workflow was triggering. But you can't trigger a workflow from another workflow. So that's pretty much the only thing that we've run into so far. But yeah, that's all I have for tonight. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at Preston J Lamb, and then on GitHub at PJLam12. And feel free to send me a message or reach out if you have any questions. And here in just a second, I'll find the link to my blog post for this, and you can reference that as well. So thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Preston. Great job. That was awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share. I especially liked about that talk that it taught me a new skill. And honestly, one of the best things about going to meetups is that you can basically fill out your tool set. And like before, I was talking about how FlameLink is, that's another tool in your tool belt. And now you can do GitHub Actions to just make CD so easy. So I think that's really cool. Anyway, I planned a talk today that's going to be sort of weird. Okay, this is not a journal of Erik interviewing at Google. This is instead something that will hopefully maybe inspire some people, maybe give you some ideas, help you prepare. I'll start with the end, which is I did not get chosen at Google, and that's okay. This is neither a judgment of people who do get into Google or people who do not. But the idea here is to shed some light on what it's like to interview at these companies, with the added bonus, which it's not really a bonus. It sucks, but you know, it's a little context is that we've got COVID-19 pandemic going on, and how that affects the interview process for Google right now. And I will get into that a little bit more because that's a little bit important. So take whatever information you want from this, and let me go ahead and present. Let's see, grab my notes. Okay. Cool. So who am I? You guys know me. I updated this. Cool. So about the purpose. All right. One, inspire you, help you prepare for the difficult interview process at Google. And I will tell you, it was the hardest interview process I've ever been through. It was exhausting. And the preparation time was hundreds of hours, and that's okay. I grew out of it. It can also help you if you've got a company and you do, or you're part of a company and you're involved in the interviewing process. It can help you know what they're doing. And it will help me. It'll help me remember my experience better if I try again in a year or so. What this won't do for you, I don't represent Google in any kind of way. It's 100% my own opinions and impressions. And I will say that they asked me to not share certain details. And I will not be sharing those out of respect for people's privacy and the respect for just Google and their privacy as well. But there's a lot that I can share with you. So I'm not going to help you cheat at Google interview process. So throw that out right now. I am not going to teach you how to be a good interviewee or interviewer. This is not about that. This is a brain dump. And I do not invite you to contact me about interviewing at Google outside of this presentation. So if you have questions, ask them during this presentation. But overall, I just want this to be sort of a fun, useful insight for you. So I probably should have put another slide here, but basically I'm going to go through the steps that I recommend. All right. And also I want to make sure I can see the chat while I'm going. Thomas Nielsen said, why work for Google?
Going in the house with them to unravel the mystery and figure out.
Anyways, so why work for Google? If you want to. Do you want to work for Google? Why do I want to work for Google? I think it would be really cool. To me, it's like participating in the Olympics, except for people who do programming. And the bar is really high to get in, and it's really high to stay. And it's really, it's a good experience from everybody that I've talked to at Google. I have some friends who work at Google and they really enjoy it. The perks are really good. They've got great benefits, decent compensation. And you get to meet a lot of really, really cool people. So it's pretty much the same as any other company as far as like why you would want to work there. Maybe you want to work at Microsoft, or maybe you want to work at a smaller company. But Google is a huge company. It's very, very big. A lot of the people, anyway, hopefully that answers that question a little bit for now. And then hopefully you pick up more answers to that question as you go through. And maybe I'll revisit that at some point. But let me get started. So before you go and try to work at a company like Google or Microsoft or any of the big tech companies, Apple, Facebook, whatever, I recommend following this sort of journey. And the first one is to seek mentorship. Okay. I must have clicked off. So first of all, it helps if you become a part of the Angular community rather than just someone that benefits from it. Although the Angular community is really useful. people are willing to help, people are willing to share. There's tons of answers on Stack Overflow. There are a ton of issues there that are solved in Angular itself and in the third-party libraries. But what I mean by this is I recommend you participate in chat at online presentations given by Googlers at meetups. Also, with the presentations given by the Angular community members, and that could be companies like Narwhal, Hero Devs, Scully. It could be any of them, but a lot of them have office hours where you can go and ask questions. And one of the best part about that is that you sort of begin to understand where there are holes and where you can help contribute. You can also understand and learn faster that way than by not participating in the community. And your face and your name starts to become more known. And that can be helpful in opening up doors to places that you didn't think may be possible. But then there's also Google's official reasons, or official, like their official meetups. And they also have internships, which I wanted to mention, which you can take part in too. Anyway, enough about that. It does help to know somebody who works at Google. They ask you. And I was able to tell them one of my friends who works there, and that helped, I think. Also, feel free to network with people at Google. Typically, they're pretty outgoing people. Well, not outgoing, but like they're taught by Google and encouraged by Google to share with the community things that they can share, and so typically they'll talk to you if you hit them up. And if you're not on Twitter already, I totally recommend getting on Twitter, and because the tech community on Twitter is actually pretty solid. I know Twitter has a reputation of being a place where people tear each other down. People feel unfriendly. To me, that's more my experience in Facebook. But in Twitter, the experience that I have with the tech community is very positive in general. That's not always true, but it's generally true. So I recommend following people, posting things, talking about ideas that you've got, and be humbly assertive, I would say. Next step, ask your mentors for advice. This is some advice that my mentors gave to me. I've got multiple people that I consider to be my mentors. One of them said, manage your emotions. And that's something that personally applies quite a bit. You got to keep it together. And for me, it was a very nervous process. So that was good advice. Avoid coming off as just happy to be here interviewing. And that can be true at any interviews, but especially at Google, or just a very serious company. Just, avoid looking like you're just happy to be part of the process, because you're there to get a job, right? The third one is where I spent most of my time preparing for this. And I do recommend it, although I think that later on I'll share some more insight about that made it not as important. Study, study, study. So Gang of Four patterns, if you don't know what Gang of Four is, it's a group of 4 individuals who called themselves Gang of Four. And I'm sure there's better explanations of this, but they created some design patterns for software engineering. And it really helps in general as a software engineer to know what those patterns are, so that you're able to approach problems from a more architectural level, and you're able to communicate very quickly some complex ideas to your coworkers. Also they told me to study algorithms. They told me to study Big O and core JavaScript. All of those were good ideas. And the fourth thing that they told me was contribute to high profile community projects like Angular, NGRX, RxJS, Scully, etc. Well, that's a really good advice, that fourth one. There's something that happened during the process that I realized. I applied for an Angular job at Google as in their, I think it was their web group. and they didn't ever ask me a single Angular question. So I'll delve into that a little bit more about why later. The next section is application. The only reason I tried to, oh yeah, excellent shout out by Stephen Nielsen about Martin Fowler's patterns of enterprise architecture. That is also an excellent one. So the only reason I thought that I should apply to Google was because I knew that Google was having all of their employees work from home until July of next year. And that gave me the courage to say, hey, I should explore this because I could stay where I live here in Utah and work at Google. And that isn't something that was possible for most people who apply to work for Google in previous years. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future, or if Google might post-pandemic, if there is a post-pandemic, hopefully there is, if they will continue working from home or allowing people to be remote. But yeah, so I applied. Here is a very useful link, careers.google.com. If you're interested in doing it, and I fully recommend it, it's a good experience, if nothing else, and hopefully you get the job. I'm really hoping that somebody sees this talk and goes and tries it and gets the job. I would love to see that. And so check it out. They've got a lot of open positions. So take a look. The application process was pretty much the normal thing. Okay, nothing different here. And so when I got the response, I was like, ooh, I got my Zelda sword. I'm so happy. I was really happy because I figured they would probably ignore me. And I didn't get ignored. And I don't know why I think that about myself, but maybe you're like me and you just assume people are going to ignore you. But they did not. And it was a super friendly process. The email I got back was just, hey, I'm here to help you get started. And they have a whole team of people just to help you and to help you understand the next steps and to help prepare you for what's to come. So one of the first things they had me do was fill out a pre-screen form. Why am I bringing this up? Well, this actually almost made me lose. So I really want to see him hit the wall because it's hilarious. Here we go. Oh, it's so long. And game over. Okay. So anyways, I filled out this form. It asks you questions like, what language do you want to use in your interviews? How much time do you want to spend? How much time do you spend coding right now? What is your area of expertise? What Google projects are you interested in? And then it asks, which office do you want to work in? And I chose Boulder, Colorado. Really, my choice was, I want to work from home here in Utah. And that is a valid choice, but it wasn't valid for the process that they go through. So I had to pick one. So I picked Boulder because it's close. And then they sent me an email saying, we don't want you because we don't need programmers like you in Boulder, Colorado. And I was like, hold on. I don't care where I work because I'm going to be working remotely. So I sent that to them and they said, oh, well, in that case, let's keep going. So if you're interested in applying for Google, keep that in mind. You might want to say something early on, even maybe before you fill this out, that, hey, I'm willing to work in multiple of these areas or any of these areas to start off. Obviously, be honest about what you're really willing to do. And honestly, I was really willing to move because I really believed in this idea. I still do. It's a really cool opportunity. So the next thing about it was meet a Googler. Why was this cool? Basically, they chose somebody who works at Google no, I didn't choose Waterloo. I chose Boulder. But Waterloo might be cool. So anyway, they chose a person who was similar in me to a situation, who was available to speak to me. And basically this entire meeting was, hey, let me answer any questions you might have. Let me help you feel comfortable interviewing at Google, because we know that this process is tricky, and it can be a nervous process. It can be a difficult process. So, you know, some of the useful information he told me was right here. You know, he told me Google wouldn't ask me to relocate until the pandemic is over. So that was really helpful to me, because I had a lot of doubts about that. He told me things about Atlanta, where he worked. So I thought that Atlanta sounded like a pretty cool place to work. And he significantly built up my confidence, was really the entire thing. He also told me that he was on the interviewers team, and that some interviewers, like Google is notorious for having interviews that ask questions about how many golf balls can you fit into the Empire State Building and things like that. And I'm like, wow, I'm really not gonna thrive on this environment in this process, am I? And he said, well, over the past few years, they've taken a lot of feedback, and they realize questions like that aren't really helpful in choosing people to do the jobs that they're applying for. So since I was applying for a front-end position, he said that they would likely tailor their questions to me and what I would be doing. That's pretty important. So anyway, I began interviewing, and this was completely remote, by the way. So the online interview, that's the first one. It was basically a Google Doc, and I had 7 days to start it and only 2 hours to complete it. Everything at Google is timed, so just be ready. But that's okay. They give you a lot of resources to help you prepare for that. So I will say not too much about it, but that basically they wanted me to use my critical thinking skills to not just program, but to figure out a project, to figure out what is the best way of doing A and B and C, and what technologies would you use to do it, and why, and like, are you sure that's going to be the most optimal solution for this situation? Explain your answer. So I thought that was a really awesome interviewing tool. And then you have to go and build whatever you say. So, you know, don't put like something crazy, but it made sense. It led into the first coding online interview. And I'll be honest, like I struggled with a couple things in that, because again, I've been doing Angular for a lot of years. I can't remember the numbers, like 5 or 6. I did Angular JS before Angular. And so a lot of things that are in my head are Angular centric. But with Google, they're like, take all your Angular knowledge and put it aside for now, because we don't care. What they care about is how well do you program? Because Google might hire you to be on one team, but they might want to move you to a different team, or you might want to move to a different team as things become available. So they're not looking for the best Angular developers. They're looking for the best developers in general, and JavaScript developers specifically for front end. So hopefully that, and TypeScript, but they didn't really care that much about TypeScript. One useful thing that you might like is that if you choose to do TypeScript and you tell the interviewers during the interviews, then they will they'll let you pseudocode or code in TypeScript. And actually everything has to run. So it's not really pseudocode. At some point you've got to convert pseudocode into code, and they test it out. And usually the way they test it out is using their brains, but maybe they were running it in the background. I couldn't tell, but anyways, they need it. It needs to run. So, okay. So the phone interview was next, and this interview was like a preparatory interview. It was basically like, we have a ton of interviews coming your way. This is what it's going to be like. And so the phone interview is actually common. Before COVID-19 pandemic, they would do this interview. It's also a screen. And so I did really well in this interview. Some of the things I can tell you about this are you should know what big O is, and time complexity and space complexity, and how to measure that and how to determine that. And you should be ready to implement something in multiple ways. Talking out loud as much as possible. Anyway, we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But it was a really natural, intense interview. So the on-site interview. This is an entire day of interviews, 5 interviews, each 45-minute long. 4 of them are technical interviews. One of them is entirely focused on front end, and one of them is entirely focused on what they call Googliness and leadership. So it's basically a behavioral interview. And the thing about that I can say, because I'm not going to go into depth on each of these, but I will say for the behavioral interview, they look for signals that are either positive or negative based upon your answers. So whatever questions they ask you, it doesn't matter so much your exact response. It's more about what you're signaling to them with your response, what you choose to say, and also how you say it. So I don't know exactly how to make good use of that information, but I would say they're generally just trying to avoid hiring someone who wouldn't succeed based on a personality trait or multiple traits. And one thing that they did that was brought up was inclusion. And they want to be sure that the people that they hire are inclusive. And I thought that was really cool because that's something that I believe very strongly in. So the second interview, third interview, those were, I'll just be honest, they were string manipulation things. They were parsing over multi-dimensional arrays and having a result at the end. And each time they asked me to improve it. Each time they added edge cases to consider. And mostly they just wanted you to figure out what the edge cases are. During this process, they will try to help you by asking you questions and giving you hints. And it's not super obvious what they're doing unless you know to look for it. They're giving you hints. And if you can take direction through these hints, you shine, because you're telling them, hey, I might not have built the perfect response to your questions right away, but I can make it better. And it doesn't really take too much to spur me into that. And then you start getting into a pattern of hey, I can make this more efficient. I can make this more readable. And I will say that one of the hidden treasures of programmers is the ability to determine if something is super fast, it's going to run super fast, or is it going to take very little memory in order for your application to run, or is it going to be very readable? And so I will give you that awesome hint that a lot of times these 3 things, and maybe some other things too, are in balance, and you have to be able to intelligently speak to that. And maybe for certain projects, it's really important to get the fastest algorithm that you can. But other times, it might be more important to get the least amount of memory used as possible. And other times, you might just want it to be really easy for people to read your code. And so that can influence how you speak. And if you speak to these things, it will help you. The fourth interview, I was interviewed by someone who works on the YouTube project. And the YouTube project is done at Google. There's something you have to understand about Google, and you will understand this even more if you start listening to the Angular Show podcast. But the way that we code in Angular outside of Google, in all of our projects and all of our companies, is vastly different than the way that Google employees do Angular. So many things are built into Angular for the community that Google doesn't even use, which I think is really cool of the Angular team, because that means that Google and the Angular team are focused on not just Google's interests, but our interests as a community. I'm going to pause for a second because Steven Nielsen asked a question. He says, did they interview on any questions based on balancing programming needs versus business value? So I'll say that that first interview, that online interview, that didn't really, I didn't have to interact with someone in that interview. That was the part where they were trying to figure out some of that. And then some of that comes out while you're talking in each of these interviews. Hey, this might be the fastest way to do it, but it's kind of hard to read. And bringing that up can win you some points. There's a lot of things that can win you points. So I feel like that's not cheating. It's just logical, right? Anyway, the front end interview, it was tough because the person who did it worked on the YouTube API or the YouTube project, and YouTube is built on a totally different framework for JavaScript called Tectonic. And Tectonic is a super low level, extremely rapid front end framework that's built entirely to be as fast as possible, as low level as possible in JavaScript, and if you can consider anything low level in JavaScript. But that was a very tough interview, I'll be honest. And I felt like it was tough because I actually got super nervous during that interview. I had expected the front end interview to be the easiest one. It turned out to be the hardest one. And I feel like mainly because of my own, I just got nervous, but it was all good. I learned a lot. So let me continue on. Oh, by the way, at the end of every interview, it was kind of cool because I got to ask some questions to each of the interviewers about things that they work on. Some things I got to ask about were like cloud, Google Cloud, Firebase, and YouTube. So a lot of that was really fun. And I don't feel like you ever get quite so much access to so many different people working at Google as when you interview. So that's also a really cool side thing. So while I was preparing, there were certain practice tools that they recommended to me. And now I'm recommending them to you. LeetCode.com. LeetCode, I don't know anybody who works there. I don't know who owns it. But I will tell you that it is a pretty excellent place to study and to improve your hacking skills in general. You can write algorithms. You can practice methods for different JavaScript built-in things like string. You can build data structures. I never considered what it means to build a linked list in JavaScript until I did that. And it's fun. And I will recommend to everyone here. I know. We don't do this stuff every day. Not all of us. Some of us might, but most of us don't deal with data structures, or we don't deal with quicksort, or we don't deal with stuff that we learned in computer science at school if you went to school. But what I've learned through this process is it's really important to continue exercising that mental muscle. And it can make you better at the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So since the Google interviews and the preparation of it, I've kept up doing at least one exercise per week at LeetCode.com. There are many other services that do that. HackerRank is one that I've done before. There's a few different ones. And a lot of jobs require you to pass some kind of coding test. And a lot of them use one of these tools in order to gauge you. Here in Utah, one that I remember doing that was Ancestry.com. And I think Pluralsight did that too. So I know a lot of companies do that actually. So this other one, Interview Cake, sounds super weird, but it's really cool. What I can say about it is you should check it out. I think it's free to join. Basically, their whole thing is we will help you get whatever job you want. and we will prepare you in every way that we can, and you'll pay for it if you get the job. And I didn't go through their really intense stuff. I just used their free information. But I think that if you're really serious about wanting a job at Google or hundreds of other companies that they specifically try to give you a path to succeed at, that could be a really cool way of doing it. And you only have to pay if you get the job. I don't know how they make you honor that, or if it's just an honor system, but. And sorry about my kids, they're all screaming. That's a pretty normal day here at the Slack residence. So, cool. I think my slides got out of order, but in any case, these tips from my recruiter were super helpful. They'll be looking for solid coding skills, knowledge and implementation of computer science fundamentals, problem-solving skills, and inquisitiveness. How enthusiastic are you, basically, at solving these problems? They want enthusiastic people who love to solve puzzles. So technical communication and collaboration. Are you able to work well with others and build off of other people? So that whole thing about, hey, it's okay if you don't get the perfect answer right away. If you're able to listen to the hints that they give you, that's part of that. Also, think out loud, speak out loud as you do your work. I know that we don't always do that while we're at work, but it can help. I think it goes along the same lines of the rubber ducky programming, where the idea is you don't necessarily need somebody to even respond all the time. Just the act of speaking out your questions can be really helpful to helping you improve your approach. Awesome. Thomas says, I like to fold up my sleeves and solve puzzles. I like to roll up my sleeves, but I do like to solve puzzles too. I'm just teasing. So interviewers will be looking at these things. Does the candidate listen carefully and comprehend the question? Are the correct questions asked before proceeding? That, they said, is super important, and I found that it was. You need to try to think through something before you just brute force solve it. Brute force is a way to solve things, and getting the quickest, most obvious way to solve things. It's not bad to talk about it. It's not bad to even start working on it necessarily, as long as you say out loud, hey, I'm going to start with this real quick, and it's only going to take a second, but I really want to see, well, here's the worst way of solving this, or the easiest way of solving this. And then I want to consider, is that the best way? Is that even close to the best way? And then iterating on that can be okay, but it's not the best way. They want you to think of a couple of different ways to solve it before you even start coding. And when I say coding, they use Google Docs and it sucks. So if you've ever coded anything in Google Docs, don't. Or if you've never done it, don't, because it sucks. But that's what they use. And so it is better to speak out loud and talk your way through your solutions. I recommend not just, if you're somebody who doesn't like to speak out loud, or you're somewhat introverted, speak up anyway. Just say whatever's in your head. It doesn't have to be directed at them. It doesn't have to make a ton of sense. Just gives them a glimpse of how you're thinking and how you're approaching the problem. Cool. So that, I skipped a bunch of slides, but I knew that I would go over explaining some things. So I just want to say thank you for listening to this talk. I really hope that some of you feel like, hey, if this is something you're interested in, then now might be the best time to get it, to actually go and do it. You don't have to fly to Google and do the interview on site. The on-site interview is still called the on-site interview, but it's totally remote. So, and you don't necessarily, depending on how things continue to go, you may not even have to move from where you currently live. And, some of you might live near Google anyways, but if you live in Utah, you don't live near Google. So this could be the perfect time for you to consider doing that. And I I think it could be a really fun opportunity for you as well to get to know what it's like. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for your time. This has been the Utah Angular Meetup. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and send them over chat or come off mute and speak it, whatever you prefer. So John Warrington says that he did it at Amazon, and it's pretty much the same process, but it was before COVID, and so he got the whiteboard instead of Google Docs. I think I'd prefer whiteboard because the spaces and the alignment of things, people like wasted time just aligning my code. And I get it, but it's like, why did we have to use Google Docs? So, well, thank you everybody, and feel free to connect with me on Twitter. I'm always happy to follow you back and see what cool things you guys are up to. So take care, and thanks again.
Did you want to do the prizes?
Yeah. In fact, I've got that up on my screen.
That was a great presentation, by the way. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird one. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go over because we're not talking about something technical. We're talking about something real world.
Well, it is, and it's useful. I mean, even if you're not currently looking for a job, I feel like just being aware of the process and being aware of what, these big tech companies are looking for, because I feel like everybody wants to improve and always look at how they can be, gaining better skills. And so like a lot of the things that you were saying, I think were helpful just to know, what can I be looking at right now? Like, what are some things I can be doing now so that when I am ready to look for a new job, I can hopefully be more prepared. So I thought it was great.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was going for. All right. Prize winner number 1 is number 9. And the way that I'm calculating this is, I don't know if you guys probably can't see my Zoom window that I just dragged over. But there's 14 panelists and 2 attendees. Myself and Brooke will not be participating.
Why not?
And will Preston. But everyone else can. So I think there's 16. So number 9 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Lillian, you are winner number 1.
She might already have.
I
Lillian, do you already have the Thinkster membership?
Yeah, I needed to renew it though.
Okay, well, we can do that one then. Do you want the Thinkster membership?
Yes.
Okay.
I love it.
Lillian just helped me with the scholarship selections for NG Conf. So
okay.
he has a ticket to the conference already.
Awesome. Well, so the ticket's still up for grabs then.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it again.
I'll email you though, Lillian. We'll get you hooked up with the Thinkster membership.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, we got number 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Come on. 10, 11. Stephen Nielsen. You're not allowed to win anymore.
That is so crazy. What are the odds? Even you are like the luckiest person I know.
10, Preston. Okay, come on, Google. 15. We're going to keep going down. Stephen was 11, so 12, 13, 14. That goes to the attendees list. 15 is Kari Anderson. Congratulations,
Yay.
Kari. You've won a ticket to Enterprise NG.
Kari, will you put your email address in the chat channel so I can have that, and then I'll reach out to you and I'll get you a ticket?
That was so
Awesome.
fun.
She sent you the email.
Perfect. Thank you.
One quick question to the group. Did you guys like that thing I did before where you got to be quizzed on stuff in the... Josh says yes. We use Kahoots, and basically we prepared some questions ahead of time based on the content of the talks, and you got to compete with each other, and then the top 3 won prizes. So I do like the randoms once in a while when I forget to make a Kahoot. But if you guys like that, then I will try to make that happen next time.
I think it works, but the only question, there were a number of people who missed out on it, Eric, because they didn't realize that you had to go from the questions you were seeing on the Zoom. It doesn't show the questions for the people answering. It only shows the possible answers. So you had to toggle back and forth between them.
Does it really? It doesn't show you the question while you're doing
the
it?
question when you were doing it, at least when I went through it. So
Oh,
you had to quickly toggle from what you were seeing on your screen to the answers on the other. Some people were just randomly pressing answers.
okay. I will take a look at that next time and see if I can like pre-check it and try to make it easier for everyone. So thanks for that feedback. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Preston. Thanks, Eric.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you guys. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.